Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Eneasz Brodsky.
I'm Steven Zuber. I forgot what order we went in. It's been so long.
Do-over? No, I'm Jace Dickey.
Hey guys, nice to see you again. It's been a while.
What's up?
Lots of things are up, but I can't go through all of them in the course of a podcast.
Well, I'm glad you're back at into the continental U.S.
Yeah.
Although, been fun. The vacation went on forever, but they can't. So
I don't know how fun that would have been.
Yeah.
I started missing people and things near the end. Yeah.
I've never had a vacation that long. I should try that.
It was intense.
Yeah.
It was my first vacation quite that long, and it was almost too much.
One where you start to get homesick.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's the goal for the next vacation.
Yeah. I know I told you this earlier, but literally when I first walked in the door, I was like, why does this place not look like my place? I mean, it looks like my place, but it doesn't feel like my place. This is a different place. What the hell?
There's a name for a psychological disorder where people believe that everyone that they encounter is replaced by an imposter. This is like that, but your house.
That went through my head. I was like, I know this is my place, but oh my god, it feels different. This is what it must be like to be one of those people.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But that cleared up in I don't know, by the time I woke up. Because we walked in 7:30, 8 a.m., and hadn't slept in 26 hours, so just went upstairs and napped for a few hours.
This isn't my house. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, there's a bed up there. I know where it is, and I'm sleeping in it.
Yeah. I remember feeling this sort of, I need a vacation for my vacation feeling, especially when you're there with family members.
Yes. I was really worried about that. But, my parents have had over 2 decades to grow, and so have I. And it went so much better than any previous vacation where they were around.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I was strongly suspecting that it would, but I didn't know how to convince you of that, and I had no background on which to base that on, other than the fact that it's been 2 decades of different dynamics, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're no longer the kid. Yeah. So any sort of of that stress from childhood vacations is gone.
Right.
But I'm glad that it worked out. So
it was really good, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep. But we are not here to talk about my Hawaii vacation. We're here to talk about other things.
Fine.
And before we jump into the Less Wrong posts like we usually do, I figured I would pull this out real fast. I was looking through the Astral Codex 10 classified thread, because Astral Codex 10 is the new Slate Star Codex, and I love it and read every single post. I usually don't read the classifieds, but somehow just managed to stumble across this one. Rob McIntyre. Do you remember Rob McIntyre? Yeah,
we're on a Rob basis now, right? Not
That's
Robert?
right. No, not Robert anymore.
Right on.
He was on the podcast, so now he's Rob to us. No, but Robert McIntyre was on the podcast specifically about brain preservation using plasticization, and I saw in the classified thread that he is currently hiring a lab assistant near Portland, Oregon, for work on brain preservation research. So that's fucking awesome. He's doing well for himself.
Do you remember when we interviewed Rudy Hoffman about his book?
Yeah.
And he mentioned that he knew somebody who was working on brain plasticity or something, or he'd heard of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, Robert McIntyre. We talked to that guy. Because he's the only...
literally the only person working on it.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, I know it's the guy, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a small world.
Yeah.
With our interests.
But if you would like to help preserve our brains after we die, specifically mine, it's the one I'm most interested in, but I would like you guys to be there too. Jace, are you signed up yet?
No.
Okay.
I
know. Right now it's a very inconvenient time. I'm just like, man, could have signed up back in the day. This is what happens when you cryocrastinate.
Well, also, I'm more interested in the plasticization than the freezing.
Yeah. But yes, hopefully all of our brains will be preserved after we cease to have functional metabolisms, and then we will be revived, assuming we even get to that point.
Yeah, I kind of hope to just not have to deal with any of that, but
yeah, better to be safe.
It's good to have a backup plan.
Yeah, exactly. Preservation is my fallback plan. I don't put a lot of confidence in it. My primary plan is just don't get,
don't die.
Don't get dead.
Yeah.
And if someone becomes aware of a way to sign up for I don't know what you'll call it, maybe the McIntyre process of plasticization, let us know, because right now cryo is the only way that you can sign up for.
You can't sign up for it yet because he's working on this research, which
know.
You could help him with if you got a job with him.
Well, the thing is my understanding from talking with him is that it basically works.
Yeah.
So you should be able to sign up. It's my fucking brain.
I think the last I checked, you can actually sign up, but I might be thinking of something else.
I think not specifically with him, but there is you can get your brain preserved, because they do have that, but it's a more destructive I can't say the word.
Plasticization?
Process, yeah. Anyway, I'm not a scientist, but he is. So if you're a scientist and want to do that, do it.
Yeah. Also, if you've ever been interviewed on this podcast and you post something in the classified threads, maybe ping one of us, maybe we'll signal boost it. But this one I was particularly interested in because, the whole brain preservation thing is a thing that I would like to happen to my brain. And any research on it is great. And, it's not like a volunteer gig. He does pay his lab research assistant. But moving on to stuff. Shall we go to our regular less wrong posts?
Our sequences? Yeah.
Yes. The first one then being evaluability and cheap holiday shopping, in parentheses. And when I was listening to the episode last week that you guys did, I was like, stop talking about it! No!
It didn't occur to me. Well,
but it turned out you didn't.
Well, we weren't even talking about this post. We were just talking about the idea in general, and it happened to, it was just on the brain, I guess.
Yep.
I think either one of the sequences we did mentioned it, or the main topic mentioned something like it. We got on that subject for some reason, surely.
Our segues usually start somewhere, or our digressions usually start somewhere.
Well, you got on it when you mentioned the next week's post, and then you started talking about next week's post, and I was like, wait,
is that what we did?
Week? No!
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it wasn't exactly right on topic after I read the top post, so, yeah.
This show needs 3 hosts.
Nah.
Otherwise, it's too easy to digress for too long.
I mean, the more hosts you have, the more digressions you get, right?
No, I think that... I think 2 people digress, and then one person, reels it back in eventually.
Okay.
The goal is to keep this digression conversation meta-analysis going for the rest of the episode. But...
yeah. So we don't actually have to talk about anything.
All right, so the secret to holiday shopping, like we, I guess, alluded to a couple weeks ago, is buy an expensive, cheap thing rather than a reasonably priced, expensive thing.
Yes. The key, though, however, to this episode is evaluability, and this is just used as an example of that. Evaluability?
I liked how a 16 gig iPod Nano was, or iPod Touch was $400. Yeah, right. I just bought a flash drive on Amazon for $18, 256 gigs, and I messaged that to Brian, who is from We Want More. I think he just turned 49 this year, and I was like, dude, look at this thing, $18 for, and there was some that was like buy one get one free, but those looked like cheap knockoffs. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I remember when I bought my first one. It was like whatever.
It's like 1 megabyte.
Like a couple megabytes in the 90s, and Google tells me it was for the equivalent of $400 or $450 or something. Yeah. So yeah, I just remember that when the 200 megabyte ones came out, 216 megabyte or whatever.
My first computer upgrade was when I went from 4 megabytes of RAM to 8 megabytes of RAM, and that cost me $100.
It's awesome. 8 megs of RAM is like a Christmas card now. I know that's
buy 8 megs of RAM.
I know that's hyperbole, but it's not that much of a hyperbole.
Well, no, you literally couldn't buy that little RAM. Anyways, it starts out saying if you buy someone a $45 scarf, you're more likely to be seen generous than if you buy them a $55 coat. And then use that to leapfrog into the idea of evaluability. There we go. I think I finally said it right that last time. By pointing out that in one study, and again, these are social studies, which we all know are a bunch of lies and never replicate, but given that, in this particular study, people were asked if they would rather have a dictionary, or how much they would pay for 2 dictionaries, one with 10,000 words, one with 20,000 words and a torn cover. And the answer was, when they were given both options, they obviously paid more for the 20,000 words one, but when they were only given one or the other in isolation, they paid more for the 10,000 word one without a cover, or with a grade cover. And Eliezer says the reason for this, supposedly, is because the number of entries in a dictionary is more important than whether it has a torn cover, at least if you ever plan on using it. But if you're only presented with a single dictionary and it has 20,000 entries, the number 20,000 doesn't mean very much. Is it a little? Is it a lot? Who knows? It's non-evaluable. And real quick, do either of you have any idea how much is a 20,000 word dictionary? A lot? Is that a little? Is that like a dictionary for kindergartners, or is that...
It doesn't sound like that many, but...
It doesn't sound like that many. I've got to guess a real dictionary has more. Just because doesn't the English language have on the order of a couple 100,000 words?
Yes.
And while you wouldn't need to capture all of them in a dictionary, you'd probably want to capture more than, an eighth.
There's, the dictionary we had at the library that was massive. It had its own podium. Mm-hmm. And there was a dictionary that I had in, my childhood home growing up that was basically for playing Scrabble, and it was the, size of a small paperback. So,
Do you remember how many words were in each?
No,
I never got around to finish counting them, yeah.
It says that... Well, maybe it says in the
I
front
know,
or something.
I'm being facetious.
According to Google, the second edition of the 20-volume Oxford English Dictionary, so literally 20 books, has 171,000 words in it.
So 20,000 words is a penance.
Well, if it's 20 books to hold 171,000,
Yeah.
20,000 entries is actually a fair chunk of that.
Well, it's a fair chunk, but I'm just saying if I was buying a dictionary, I don't want half of one volume, right? I want all the words.
They say that of those 171,000, 47,000 are obsolete. Probably don't need all of them.
So, anyway, well, here's the thing. My quick thought on this. 1993 money. People are willing to pay an average of $24 for the dictionary. I mean, between 20 and $30 rounding for this experiment. I call bullshit. I don't know what that was in 1993 money, but that was more than $25 now. And that's way too much for a dictionary. That said, dictionaries are more accessible to us now because we all have phones, but
I don't think that's an unreasonable amount, honestly, because
for a dictionary that contains roughly 1/6 of the words.
all right, so you don't want every single word, because again, you don't want 20 volumes of dictionary in your house, right? You just want one dictionary that you use.
If I'm dropping $30,
I mean, for a single encyclopedia book, that was a reasonable price back then.
I know it was.
$20-$30. For dictionaries about the same thing.
For just bound blank pages, I'd be lucky to get $20
Okay,
for.
can I? Most paperback dictionaries contain about 50,000 words. The average home dictionary has about 100,000 words.
Whoa!
And the biggest dictionary in America, which I think was the one we had at the library, Webster's Third International, contains more than 40,000 words.
Wait, you just said the average home one contains 100,000, didn't you?
Yes.
I think by biggest, maybe they just mean...
You know what could be? Maybe Oxford and Webster's Amazing have long paragraphs describing every word and all the various permutations of the word. Like, here's the 17 different meanings of the word but.
And it could be, too, that one of those metrics that Jace just found is giving you the word count of the dictionary, not the number of words that it defines.
Son of a...
Which would be sneaky. In any case, I don't want to get hung up on the wrong point.
Right,
on the
we're
wrong-
getting
wrong
digressed
part here.
again. Yeah.
But here's the gist. Once you can compare the two dictionaries, people are like, oh, I want the one with more number or more words.
Yeah.
So
but if you can't, and all you can really go on is like, I guess, well, the cover's torn, so it's got to be worth less than a non-torn cover dictionary, so you pay less for it.
yeah.
I got to pull this out too, because it's...
Oh, hold on. This is a music dictionary.
What's a music dictionary?
In the experiment, willing to pay for a second-hand music dictionary.
Did I just skim over the word music?
I skimmed over it every single time I listened to and read
Same
this
did
paragraph
I.
so far.
Wow.
Same did I.
So I withdraw all of my complaints about the word count. You probably don't have 100,000 words to talk about music. 20,000 is probably plenty.
Most dictionaries contain about 50,000 words. Average home dictionary has 100,000 words. Yeah, I don't know how to square this with the whole Oxford thing, aside from maybe they're just writing a fucking essay on every single word
The
in Oxford.
article that I pulled up at the end says, in 2010, a school district in Southern California temporarily removed all copies of the Merriam-Webster 10th Collegiate Edition from elementary school classrooms because it was considered too explicit when it came to sex.
Okay.
We had a big one when I was in, I can't remember what school I was even in, elementary or junior high, but it was like in the library on its own kind of podium thing. And whenever I passed it, I'd turn it to the page with sex or naked or something, right? Just because it was funny.
Oh, here's this. A second edition of the Oxford English Dictionary. There are approximately 600,000 word forms defined. So yeah, I guess word and word forms are separate things.
All right, we're getting bogged down though.
Yeah, it's sneaky nerd sniping Google.
So running past this though, people are the point is you need something to compare what you're getting to, right?
Yes.
So if I'm getting a thing, great, but what's my baseline? Is this a good deal or not?
Yeah.
Right? If I have no baseline, then I have no idea if it's a good deal.
One of the great ones was the ice cream cups. One had 8 ounces of ice cream in a really big cup, so the ice cream was kind of down below the lid. The other had 7 ounces of ice cream, so 1 ounce less, but in a little small cup, so it was overflowing, and people would pay more for the overflowing one, right up until the point that they were actually, shown side by side.
No, it was, I think...
But because they were comparing the ice cream to the size of the cup it was in. So if you're going to sell stuff that's being consumed out of a container, always make sure the container is a little bit too small.
I'm surprised that even having seen them side by side...
No, after they saw them side by side, they adjusted.
No, I'm just saying I'm surprised that they adjusted even after... I guess if you're shown pictures, that's fine. But I think if you showed people 2 cups of ice cream, and like which one do you want? And like even if you could tell one had more, you're like, this one looks like it's overflowing with ice cream. I want that one. I feel like psychologically that's how it would work if you're showing them real ice cream.
Like the red bean thing?
Yeah. Well, except like this, the diagram couldn't make it clearer. I just think if you showed them 2 cups, you know, they don't have the volumes labeled on them or whatever. You just see one that looks like it's full of ice cream and one that looks like it's, you know, almost full of ice cream.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think pictures, that's one of the weaknesses.
Yeah. A fun thing that I pulled out here that I just had to mention was that they also found that someone who was given a choice between a certain $2 and a gamble, where you could get $2, but you have a possibility of losing 5 cents, preferred the gamble. Which I guess makes sense, because if you're gambling, you want some kind of game of chance, and just getting $2 is not a game. Laser points out, you can make a gamble more attractive by adding a strict loss. No one who truly appreciates the wondrous intricacy of human intelligence wants to design a human-like AI. Which is great snark on humans.
It's a fun takeaway sentence, but so this is fun. Having been a twin my entire life, we got to participate in twin studies and still do once in a while at the Institute for Behavioral Genetics in Boulder. And I remember some years ago, maybe I was in junior high or high school, they gave us some test kind of like this, and it was, you kept betting on the computer thing. And I asked him when it was done, I was like, so what was this actually testing? You know, I can't spoil the results because it's done, right? And he's like, well, the game was rigged. It started paying out less and less the more it went on. So it was just testing to see how much you bet. The thing is, you got to keep the money. So it's like, oh, it's real money. But it was like, I think $2 or $5. And so, like, that's the thing is, you know, with these $2, like, what do I want, $2 or do I want to play a game?
Right.
And so that's one of the takeaways with some of these. Like, this is, I'm assuming in
that's a good point. At least then you're having some fun in the study.
You're having fun. You're not driving out to somewhere to get a $2, you know, $2 single dollar bills. You're going out to play some game, and it's like playing penny slots, right?
Yeah.
At least that's a game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This destruction is one of those things that I bet this would even replicate. You know, but it doesn't.
Just doesn't matter.
It just doesn't actually seem to matter, right? Now, if I was a robot, I want the $2, right?
Right.
But because I'm a person and I like having fun, I'd rather spend. I'd rather have the risk of losing a nickel than be able to play a game, right?
I think I'm trying to remember. I read somewhere that, or it was my understanding that whenever it doesn't really matter the amount of money, but just when you add money to an equation as opposed to like Reese's cups or something, it automatically just, because people have this association with money as valuable, regardless of like how valuable, how much money it is. But I can't remember the source. Dang.
But yeah, it kind of ends with saying if you could, like we were talking earlier, if you could spend $400 on a 16 gig iPod Touch, your recipient sees the most expensive MP3 player. If you spend $400 on a Nintendo Wii, your recipient sees the least expensive game machine. Which is better value? And honestly, it's the Wii. But that question only makes sense if you see the two side by side. If you think about them, if you see them side by side when you're shopping, but the recipient only sees what they get. So they're like, wow, out of all the, they don't see like, he had $400, this is the thing he chose for $400. They see he bought me a MP3 player, and out of all the MP3 players, he bought me the most expensive one.
Now, 2 things about this. One, you inserted the bit that the Wii is the better deal. That wasn't in the post. But you're right.
I know.
Yeah, but it was just clear because, you know, you were quoting some and then inserted another.
Yeah.
But you're right, the Wii is the better deal because anything plays MP3s, but only one Wii, right? But also, it's funny just how much this dates the post, right? And $400, that might have been, I think that was within $50 of the gaming consoles back then. I think the PlayStation 2, 3, I forget. Must have been the 3 that came out right around with the Wii.
Yeah.
The Wii came out in, I'm going to say 2006, give or take a couple of years.
Okay.
Because I remember I did an overnight, I waited in line to get one at like Best Buy in the middle of the night.
Oh.
So that was fun.
Nice, yeah.
I went and did the same thing for a PlayStation 4 last week, or the week before.
PlayStation
5. And that was the first time I'd done that since 2011, doing like waiting in line for a game thing.
Yeah.
But the time before that might have been the Wii, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he also says, by the way, if you actually use this trick, I want to know what you bought, and we are also interested in that.
I was wondering how much this scales really, like, before people start to get suspicious. Like, I don't know, like...
It seems to scale without, well...
like, I'm just wondering, like, could you buy the most expensive? And I'm trying to think of something ridiculous.
He mentions toothpicks and dust specks.
Yeah.
I have a good one. So, remember, like, in 2016, for, like, 2 weeks, there was that thing where people were trying to be like, oh, yeah, if you're wearing a paperclip it signals you as an ally to people.
No, not a paperclip, a safety pin.
Safety pin.
Because
And-
that means you're safe.
Yes. Oh, that's funny. I didn't put that together. I figured you could hurt somebody with a safety pin, but which makes the name kind of.
It's because, as opposed to a pin that's just a straight pin.
In any case, I remember seeing links to gold ones like on Etsy that were like $160 or something.
Oh, wow.
And they might have been gold paint. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But like that sounds like strikes to me as like the kind of thing. It's like, oh, here's a safety pin. It costs $40, and I left the price tag on it.
Has a Swarovski crystal on it.
Yeah. I guess you don't want to be gauche and leave the price tag on, so you got to buy something that somebody knows was really expensive, which is, I guess, the appeal of Apple products. If you get one, somebody knows that you got raped in the wallet for no good reason.
Basically. But the goal is to not spend Apple money, right? You want to get something like more cost effective.
Unless you're giving a gift.
Well, like, so I could get you a MacBook, like, whatever, an old MacBook Pro, right? Mm-hmm. Or I could get you a $50 mug. And, like, the mug might be, like, self-heating or something, right?
Yeah.
But I've still saved $2,000.
Yes.
And you've got a dope-ass mug. And you might appreciate it more than the MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Because this is a top-of-the-line mug, damn it.
Damn straight.
Okay. I was at the Natural History Museum, and I went in the gift store, and I was walking around just trying to find the silliest item not to buy or anything, but just because I didn't really want to be in the gift store, but my friend wanted to see it. There was I forget, it's like $20 or $30 ceramic dinosaur that you put tacos in. It was like a stegosaur, and you would put the taco on top of it, so it has, I guess the taco is anyway.
Nice.
It's like, all right, so like for the person that has everything.
Yes, they don't have a dinosaur taco holder. Alrighty, moving on. This leads directly into the next post, Unbounded Scales, Huge Jury Awards, and Futurism.
I'm going to go ahead and nominate this one for worst title so far.
It's a pretty bad title.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. It tells you what's inside it, though.
It does. Yeah. I mean,
helpful that way.
It could be worse. I'm not saying it's the literal worst.
I'm sure we'll get a worse title eventually here out of the however many thousands of posts.
This week's post, Hitler did nothing wrong. It's about jury selection.
Hitler, back when he was a defense attorney, did nothing wrong during his jury selection. When you want to find out how loud an acoustic stimulus is, how bright a light source appears, you usually ask the listener or watcher. And when you use an unbounded scale for them, instead of like saying how bright is this on 1 to 10, and an unbounded scale is 1 to whatever they want, the observer is typically presented with a constant stimulus, which is given a fixed rating. For example, a sound is assigned a loudness of 10. Then the observer can indicate a sound twice as loud as the modulus by writing 20. But what happens if you give subjects an unbounded scale but no modulus? 0 to infinity with no reference point for a fixed value. Basically the same thing. They make up their own modulus. And I'm just going to take a quick break here to say that's usually how our book club ratings work. We don't have an unbounded scale. Our scale is from 1 to 10, but basically everyone kind of... The first time you join a book club, you're like, well, I don't know what number to assign this. You kind of signed one like, I sort of liked it, so, 7, or like, I didn't like it that much, so 4. And then after that, you kind of always think back to the previous few books that you've rated, and you're like, was it better or worse than them? And assign a number based on that. At least that's been my experience.
At some point, you'll be familiar with enough books to know what rates a 1 and what rates a 10, and then be more accurate.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily require like a hard baseline, just because, I don't even have to know what your metrics are, but if you tell me, I read 3 1s last year and 2 10s, and I'm like, okay, well, the 10s sound like it must be good, because, like at least that gives me something. Mm-hmm. Vaguely related, when there's no baseline metric, right? So I watched a review for a video game called Dying Light 2.
Okay.
Dying Light was a fun game, kind of like a combination between like first-person parkour, shooter fighter game or whatever.
I hate first-person parkour. If you can't see where your feet are, how are you fucking parkouring the game?
First-person cameras.
You jump and grab stuff. It's fun. It played well, but it was fine. So there's a sequel coming out this week, and I usually don't watch like video game reviews because they always suck, and this was a good example of why. The person talked about it. It was like 10 minutes long. They were like, well, it's full of bugs, like game-breaking bugs, not the kind where it's like, oh, look, that person, standing in T-pose for a second. Yeah. Like one of our demoers, it bricked on, like it didn't brick their system, but it bricked the game to where all their save progress was lost and they couldn't get off the start menu.
Jesus.
And like, they'd fall through the ground into oblivion, like that sort of stuff. And So there was that. They were like, the character is like if you ordered like a generic protagonist from Amazon and got the Chinese knockoff. And like the story sucked, like the background was like cliched as hell or whatever.
Yeah. 8 out of 10.
The choices don't matter. 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I'm like, what the hell warrants a 6?
Yeah.
Like, you told me this game was literally unplayable, and that even when you could play it, it sucked. Like,
if the game came to your house and broke your dog's legs, 6.5.
So this is why you don't look at like IGN for game reviews. You go find like people whose job is like they don't get paid to review games.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you can also just know that their real scale is 7 to 10.
Yeah, I guess.
There's someone in our book club that if she ever rates a book an 8, I know that it is one of the best books ever. If she ever rates a book a 5, I know that this is a piece of turd.
So that's the upper and lower bound.
That's the range.
Her real scale is 6 or 7. Yes.
I have noticed when I'm filling out, I guess like on a scale of 1 to 5. Oh, like I'm thinking of like depression scales or
I never put 1 or 5.
Yeah, that's what I was getting
I
at.
somewhat agree with this,
Yeah.
or I somewhat disagree.
or I put like almost all 2 to 4, and very few times I'll put a 1 or a 5. Like
Apparently-
they feel almost taboo. Like I can't say it's literally the worst or literally the best unless or like
Yeah. I completely agree. Apparently, if you do that, you're screwing your Uber driver or whoever, because apparently everyone just defaults to 5 stars if it was fine, and anything less than 5 means that there was something bad that happened.
yeah.
And the apps know this so much that they just basically track people's performance as how many 5 stars they've gotten as a percentage. If you get anything other than 5 stars for, more than, I think, 10% of your clients, you're like, dude, something's going wrong. We may not be able to employ you anymore.
I gave somebody a 3 once. It was the most uncomfortable ride I've ever had.
See?
It was
and
like
you gave him the 3 for the most uncomfortable ride ever.
Should be average.
yeah, that should have been a 1, right? But I'm like, I don't want to, ruin his score or whatever. But like, yeah, I got out feeling crazy motion sick. It was like he was just lead-footed the whole time, and like he was like pissed at traffic, like audibly, no sound. The seats were uncomfortable. Like the car was dirty and grimy, and I'm like 3 stars. Like
Well, you can feel comfortable that you gave him a horrible review because it was a non-5
Right.
review.
That describes every taxi ride I've ever had.
I've been in cleaner
Really?
taxis.
Okay.
It was, but yeah, no, they're the impatience and the rush and the fear factor. Yeah, that shouldn't be a part of it, right?
I believe I've actually never been in a taxi.
You're not missing anything. Well, actually, no, you are. It's a weird experience. There's at least in the ones in New York, there's like a TV with like commercials screaming at you the entire fucking time.
I take it back. Way back in the day, I was in Las Vegas and I took a taxi to go like 5 blocks down the strip or something.
Just cause, or because it was 150 degrees out and you didn't
The
want to
second
walk
one.
around.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Uber got to really get a leg in very much, or if this has changed. But I used to drive to New York every weekend, and it's like a third of the traffic anywhere is taxis, and they're all like out to kill you. You like if you see a taxi coming, you have to get out of their way.
Damn.
They're gonna play chicken. They will not let you merge. Like
You're in a small town when you try to get an Uber and there's literally no one working.
Yeah.
yeah.
That happened to me in Hawaii on one of the out of the way islands.
As long as you get a car. Wait, what?
Yeah.
There's no cars.
It's 7:30 a.m. and you want to go to the airport, literally no one working.
Where
Yeah.
I used to live in New Jersey, there's no public transit. Like you have to drive everywhere.
Well, that's most U.S. cities.
Or you could like bike 30 minutes to get to the train, which only goes to Philadelphia and back.
Anyways, I guess we should get back to this.
Yeah, what's this post about?
This post is that for a subject rating on a single thing on an unbounded scale without a fixed standard, nearly all the variance is due to the arbitrary choice of the modulus, rather than to the sound or thing itself. And he says, you think to yourself, this sounds an awful lot like juries deliberating on punitive damages. No wonder there's so much variance. I don't know if there's anyone who read this post ever in the history of this post that said that as they were reading it. But I like that he put that in for us, assuming that we were so much smarter than we actually are.
Or I don't know, that's just very specific too.
Yes.
Because I was thinking of other things that this reminded me of, but that were like relevant to my experience.
Ooh, what did you come up with?
I was actually going to say this earlier, and it's slightly different, but I was thinking about the way, what is it called? Anchoring, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
The way also when, like for your book club, if you don't have an established scale of sort of what merits a 2 versus a 7 or whatever, then whoever is the first one to be like, okay, I'm thinking like a 7, and then everybody's gonna like also be around like 7 is what this one person said, so they're gonna anchor on that.
Yeah.
So if you disagree, you're gonna go down. Like I think it wasn't that good, maybe a 6.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if the first person had said 5, the next person will say, oh, it wasn't that good, maybe a 4.
Yeah. Point. But yeah, he says jury awards for punitive damages aren't really an economic valuation in so much as they're a attitude expression, a psychophysical measure of outrage expressed on an unbounded scale with no standard modulus. And he relates this to futurism.
He's describing video game reviews as well.
He relates this to futurism, where some people are asked, how soon do you think AI will be there? And, a bunch of people just give random numbers. And one person in specific said, probably about 500 years. And he said, that is, wow, that's the craziest number I've ever heard. Basically was not what he said, but the impression you get if you're reading this. What he actually said is, if I'd asked, on a scale where 0 is not difficult at all, how difficult does the AI problem feel to you? If this were an unbounded scale, every sane respondent would mark extremely hard at the right-hand end. People just make up a number to represent extremely hard, which may come out as 50 or 100 or even 500. Then they tack years on the end. It seems entirely reasonable.
How hard is this? 500 hard.
Yes.
Years.
Yeah.
Years.
The other thing I was thinking of was I actually used to do like A/B testing and like focus testing for when I worked in the video games industry, and I would try really hard to use Likert scales, which is the one that's like strongly disagree, neither agree nor dislike instead of numbers.
Right. Yeah.
Or something else that would just give you some specificity.
Did you see A/V testing or A/B testing?
A/B testing.
Okay.
Like 2 logos for the App Store, and one of them has a boat in the background, and the other one has a big sun.
Yeah, I misheard you. Okay, so for next time, we are reading The Halo Effect, Superhero Bias, and Mere Messiahs. That is 3 of them, but they all go together, so we're reading all 3 of them. And we will spend less time per each one, so we don't go,
Challenge accepted. You had to say that.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Just because there's the word superhero.
I
feel like
damn.
we're going to get...
Well, we can reference method rationality for at least 2 of those, so...
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to our main subject. We have 2 main subjects this time, because I figured both will be fairly short, and as I get laughed at. but I figured they'll both be fairly short, and I would love to cover both of them, so let's do that now. The first one is use normal predictions.
Yeah, this was written by our very own. He's on our Discord, and he was in the...
And therefore we claim rights to him.
I mean, we don't get nothing.
That's right.
No. But he was in the Guild of Servants as well. Jan Christian Refsgaard.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Jan, I hope?
Yeah. It sounds right.
Yeah. So if I got your name wrong, ping me and let me know, and I will issue a correction.
And this is... referencing a thing that rationalists like to do, which is make our beliefs probabilities rather than hard, this is true, this is false things. And to make our beliefs probabilities, we got to put some sort of percentage estimate on how true we think something is. And then a common exercise is to make a bunch of predictions using probabilities and then see how well we do as predictors to see how good we are at having accurate beliefs about the world, how calibrated we are, I guess.
And to hopefully get better at it.
And yes, especially to hopefully get better at it. And because the way that most people think about probabilities is, well, I think there's like an 80% chance that this thing will happen, really, really hard to measure how accurate we were. Like in 2016, if you said, I think there's an 80% chance that Hillary Clinton will win, and then Trump wins, like, were you wrong? I mean, maybe you were right that there was an 80% chance Hillary would win, and it just happened to be in the 20% that Trump won instead. So you might be perfectly calibrated, and just it fell in the wrong 20% this one time. So what do you do about that? And the answer has typically been make many, many, many predictions, and then all the ones that you rated at 80%, see how many you got right. And if you got 80% of them right, then you're doing it right. If you got 90% of them right, then you're doing it wrong. You are underestimating things, and you should increase how likely you think those things are.
I think it's always a bamboozle, probably even at like a mathematical level, but I'm not a mathematician. Before I forget, this post was like featured post of the week on Less Wrong.
It's a really good post.
Yeah.
For the reasons we'll get into soon.
Totally. But what I was going to say is that it's hard to assign a probability to something that already happened.
Well, yeah,
And
you're
so,
supposed to do it for things that haven't.
no, I
happened
know,
yet.
but like,
Okay.
but after the election results came in, then you can't look back and be like, well, how likely was it that you were right? It's like, well, I was apparently 100% wrong, right?
Yeah.
So again, I'm sure there's some mathematical way of getting around this, but I think it's probably less straightforward than just Bayes' theorem, because I think the example I heard is like, what were the odds that like the Cuban Missile Crisis was going to end in huge conflict? And it's like, how can I possibly answer that, right? I guess I could try and look up what numbers people gave at the time, right? But if they didn't give me an estimate, then like I have to say, I don't know, 0, because it didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that. To get us aside the point, I just
And this is actually about how to be more better about that kind of thing, which is why I found it so useful, and I think so many other people did as well.
I'm glad I read it, and even though he said you don't have to be very good at math, I still am like, oh, this is a little mathy for me, and I'm looking forward to the intuitive explanations. So
I will do my best,
we're counting on you.
and hopefully Jace can help.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm real dumb, y'all. This is gonna be tough.
All right. I am going to link here as well the Astral Codex 10 predictions for 2022. That's not Stephen. That Scott Alexander made. He does this every year. 100 predictions about the coming year to help calibrate himself. It's really cool. We can all play along if we want to. But yeah, he's been doing this for like what, 6-7 years now.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Philly Lesser Known group used to also use his list of predictions and make our own predictions, and then score each other each year as like our sort of.
Do you remember how good you were?
I was pretty good in some categories of thing. I was not good at anything that had to do with guessing like who was going to be the president of France, because I don't really follow that. But like,
that's why you got to make your own questions about things that you actually know about.
I was the only one that gave Donald Trump like, what did I forget. It was something very low, like 30 or 40%, but it was still way higher than everybody else. And like, really? That high? And then I felt vindicated.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know.
Congratulations. I
It was like kind of.
You ruined America. Thanks.
Kind of, yeah.
But
Kind of a downer.
But Jan's post is about not doing this anymore. He says that we often make binary predictions when it is not necessary, such as Biden wins the popular vote, 91% probability. He says that instead of doing this, we could make predictions from a normal distribution. Normal distribution prediction would be something like, I predict that Biden will get 54% of the popular vote with a sigma of 3. He says that, as a way to tease us into this, predicting from a normal is surprisingly easy, 1. Getting an actionable number for how over or underconfident you are requires only simple math, which I disagree with, but, you know. The math is simple if you're good at math. It's a little daunting if you're not, but still, it is very useful nonetheless. And the normal distribution carries more information than he uses the word Bernoulli. We're going to use the term binary outcome, this prediction, and will therefore give you more information to act on. So, how do we make a normal distribution? A normal distribution has 2 parameters, which we talked about before, the percent of the popular vote you think Biden's going to get, which is 54, and the sigma, which is 3%. The actual number you're predicting, the first one, the 54% of the popular vote, that is called mu. It is the most likely and average value that you're predicting. The second number, the how wide the variance is going to be, is called sigma. This captures uncertainty. High sigma implies high uncertainty. And the key to making a normal prediction is the 68, 95, 99.7 rule. And at this point, there is a graph of a bell curve, which I hope everybody is familiar with, but we'll have it in the show notes just in case you aren't. The bell curve shows that the mu, the number prediction, is right in the middle, and the bulk of the bell, the area under the bell, is centered around mu. Within 1 sigma should be 68% of all results. Within 2 sigma, so if your sigma was 3%, that would be within 6%, should be 95% of all results, and within 3 sigma, you should have 99.7% of all results. And he says, this looks a little complicated, but it's not as bad as you think. Allow me to get into it. To make a prediction, there's 2 steps. 1, predict mu. Predict the actual average that you think is going to happen. Step 2 is using the 68, 95, 97, 99 rule to capture your uncertainty. So, in the Biden example, from polls, he got a 54% estimate, is what polls seemed to be indicating. So he said that was a good guess for mu, 54%. And then you try to figure out the sigma. A sigma of 2% implies that there is a 97.5% chance that Biden would get more than 50% of the vote. And at this point, there is a table that we will also link in the show notes that helps to explain this. But to say it in words, if your guess is that it's 54% of the vote that he's going to get, and your sigma is 2, that means you are assuming that 68% of the time he will get between 52 and 56% of the vote, because 54 minus 2 is 52 and 54 plus 2 is 56. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's 2 less and 2 more than your actual prediction, because your actual prediction is mu and the sigma is 2, so you subtract 2 and add 2 from it. 68% of all the results are going to be within that 52 to 58. That means within 2 sigma, within 4, is going to be 95% of all results. So between 50 and 58, because now we're subtracting 4 and adding 4 rather than just 2, it will be 95% of all results. So that means you think that between 50 and 58% of the popular vote going to Joe Biden is 95% of results. And then on the tails, the very last little bit is the 5% of all remaining possibilities will be either less than 50% or more than 58%. And since more than 58% still counts as a win, because all you need is more than 50%, you take half of that as well and add it in. And half of 5% is 2.5. So you add in 2.5 to 95, you get 97.5% chance that Biden will get more than 50% of the votes. This makes it's easier to see if you're looking at the table. I'm going to stop right here. If you're looking at the table, does what I just said make sense?
The intervals, right? Yeah.
Did any of that make sense if you aren't looking at the table? Because I think there are a lot of words there that are trying to convey something that is easily put in a picture, but I can't really say it.
I think it's just worth reiterating that mu, which is the little fancy U-shaped letter, that is the most likely and the average value.
Yes.
And then O with the little line on it, sigma, captures the uncertainty. High sigma implies high uncertainty. Yeah. And so you were looking at sigma 2 and then going over the mu values for those, right?
No, the mu value is 54 regardless. He thinks it's most likely that Biden will get 54% of the vote. But his sigma is 2, so that means 54% plus or minus 2%.
Okay.
Yeah, and
that's helping.
Yeah.
What is meant by confidence intervals, right?
Yeah.
Because we talk about, that's one of those words rationalists like to use.
But, wait. Actually, I think confidence interval is related, but not actually this thing.
This is more refined than confidence interval, I think. Because I think, at least my understanding of a confidence interval is like I can pull 2 numbers out of my ass and be like, or I guess 3. I think it's 95% likely that Biden will get somewhere between 30% and 70% of the vote, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's my confidence interval. But it's not refined at all, right?
Again, I don't know. I think confidence interval has an actual technical definition, which is basically that, but I don't want to say that because I don't actually know what the technical definition is.
Fair enough.
So basically, the easiest way to think of this, in my opinion, is that you're 95% confident that the result will be within 2 sigma of your mu. So if my sigma is 2%, that means I'm 95% confident it's going to be plus or minus 4% of my mu. And since his mu in this case was 54, that means you're 95% confident it's going to be somewhere between 50 and 58. 54 plus or minus 4%. Make sense?
Yes, except for the numbers under 95% are 50 to 58, right? And if it's
because it's 54 plus or minus 4.
Oh, I thought it was 52 plus or minus 4.
No, 54.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so 52 is what he actually got. 54 was his guess. Okay, yeah. My bad.
Yeah.
You're
jumping ahead to see what Biden actually got.
It's
like you're living in the future or something.
I'm cheating.
Yeah, and
being cheating and bad at reading are kind of the same thing. So
yeah, and since he's 95% confident that it'll be between 50 and 58%, that leaves 5% for the tails. And again, getting more than 50% still counts as a win, so you can add that 2.5% back to the original prediction. So that's saying, in effect, 97.5% chance that Biden will win. And he says, I was not that confident. Then he goes to think about a sigma of 4. A sigma of 4 implies an 84% chance that Biden would get more than 50% of the vote. Using that same math, it would mean that he's 95% confident Biden would get between 48 and 60% of the vote. And you can graph that out to see, what that actually comes in as. But that means a 16% chance that Trump wins. And he thought, that's too high. I don't think there's a 60% chance Trump will win. So he settled on a mu of 3, which is between those two and seemed fairly reasonable to him. Turns out Biden did get 52% of the vote, which was within 1 sigma of his prediction, because his prediction was 54 plus or minus 3, and 52 is within 54 plus or minus 3. So, good prediction, right?
Yeah, it worked.
I think so, yeah. He can draw 2 weak lessons from this one data point. First of all, the pollster screwed up. He should have regressed mu to the mean of 50%, and made a prediction like maybe 53 instead of 54. But also, his prediction was exactly 2/3 of a sigma from mu, which is right on the 50-50 line of how accurate you are. If you are within 2/3 of 1 sigma of mu, you're doing a darned good job. So he says that he was a bit lucky that it was exactly on the 2/3 line, but it's weak evidence that his sigma was well chosen. So huzzah to him. He was well calibrated on that.
Yeah.
Now, he said, imagine instead that I had done a binary prediction like
91%.
Yeah, like 91%, and like is normally done in, for example, Scott's posts every year where he, makes 90%, 80% predictions on stuff. Instead, I predicted that Biden wins the vote 91%. Well, he won, so I was right, and that's it. He'd have to make at least 9 other predictions that are all 90% confident and see if he got 9 of them right and 1 of them wrong to see if he's correctly confident in stuff. And, I mean, in my opinion, they'd all have to be kind of on the same general topic of politics, because otherwise you're taking different domains and you can be more or less sure in other domains.
Yeah.
So more or less overconfident in those. It doesn't give you very much information at all on its own.
Yeah, that was kind of the problem that I was having with our, Slate Star Codex predictions, the yearly prediction, because obviously I felt more confident in trying to guess an American election than a French one.
Yeah.
But there's no way to actually capture that confidence. Like, we don't even formalize it. It's just sort of, you kind of go back and retroactive, or not. I feel like I don't have the correct terminology to even talk about this in my head, but basically what you can do is say, I'm here. I think that Biden has a 91% chance, and then and I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
But or what's the term that people like to use? Oh yeah, your epistemic status kind of could be like.
Yeah. Epistemic status.
I don't really know very much about politics, but I think 30%.
Right. Yeah. And here you can capture epistemic status by the number that you put in sigma. He says
it's part of the equation too.
Yes, a little later
when
on.
You're scoring yourself.
He does say that if he predicted that 90% Biden would win, and Biden got 52% instead of the predicted 54% of pollsters, then thinking I should have predicted 80% instead of 90% because the pollster screwed up seems weird, as that's a weaker prediction and the bold one was right. So I would need to predict a lot of elections to see if I was under or overconfident. And that's a darn good point. Should he have predicted 80%? Since he went off of the 54 number and it turned out that 52 was correct? I don't think so, because Biden still won.
Hard to, we don't have access to the counterfactual world.
Exactly. And using normal predictions gives you a more of ability to kind of factor in the counterfactuals, because then if your sigma was accurate. If his sigma had been 1, it would have been a bad prediction. Even though he guessed 54, it would have been 2 sigmas outside instead of 2/3 of 1 sigma outside of his. So, yeah. Any questions or comments before we continue? Does any of this make sense to you, Stephen?
Yeah, I think it's helping. Let's keep rolling through it, and if I am still confused by the end, then I'll raise that.
Okay. He says he also made a terrible prediction during the early lockdowns in 2020. He predicted. Okay, so here's the formal number, and I want both of you to see if you can parse it out into words. Mu 15,000 deaths with a sigma 5,000 deaths.
Yeah, I think this is actually where it lost me when I was trying to read it the first time, too. So,
what do you mean by parse it?
What does that mean in English words?
So,
you go first, Steven.
I'm going to just give my intuitive guess at it. So, n, parenthesis, 15,000, comma, 5,000, close parens. So, that's the equation, right? It's just n mu sigma. It sounds like at a glance, I'm guessing 15,000 deaths plus or minus 5,000, but that's not what it is.
No.
No.
It's 15,000 deaths plus or minus 5,000 is 68% likely, and 15,000 deaths plus or minus 10,000 is 95% likely, because 2 sigma gives you your 95% confidence.
Thank you. See, I appreciate that, because I was looking at that first graph where the sigma intervals are like 2, 3, 4, or whatever, and I'm like, if I bump those up to 5,000, that's like, I'm looking at like, sigma interval 5,000, right? But that's not exactly what. Well, I guess it is. See, that's why this is hard for me.
Okay,
but we're getting there. It's clear enough when you laid it out, though. So
yeah, that double your sigma is your plus or minus. To the mu is your 95% chance. So 95% chance that plus or minus 10,000 of 15,000 plus or minus 10,000 will be the number of casualties.
Okay, putting it that way, it doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah.
Whatever's your second param, double that, and that's your 95% confidence interval.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, I can that parsed correctly. Great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Until
Until we get to
the actual number turned out to be 3,200, which is 2.36 standard deviations away, outside the 95% interval. So, I mean, you're pretty damn confident, 95% confident that it's gonna fall within this interval, and then it fell outside it. That looks pretty bad.
Well, in Jan's defense, I feel like that was a very conservative estimate, right? Just given how the rest of the world handled it.
Yeah.
I think if you average the rest of the world, his prediction would have been well pessimistic, right?
No excuses, man.
I don't know.
Is there any excuses when your bridge falls down because you misestimated how many pounds that the steel could hold up?
If you were pretty sure.
You should be at least 95% sure, and yet it still fell down. I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
No,
here.
no, of course.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a clever rebuttal about how this is just private guessing and not bridge making. But let's dissect what happened there, I guess. So.
And yeah, just ideally, you always want your guesses to be within 2/3 of a sigma. So he'd want his guess to be within 3,000 or so of 15,000. That is what you're shooting for.
That said, I did think of my non-pithy pushback to the this is the terrible prediction thing. Like, it's a wrong prediction. I think it was a good prediction.
Okay.
But it just turned out to be wrong, right?
It's a bad prediction if it was that far off.
I guess I don't know what to... Because you're right, when I say bad and... When I say good and wrong, it doesn't seem like those two words can work together in the same sentence.
Like if you buy a stock and you think or if you buy a Bitcoin and you think it's going to be worth 15,000 and instead it ends up being worth 3,200, you're off by a lot.
Right. I don't know. I feel like this at the time was a perfectly reasonable guess, even though it turned out to be wrong.
Okay, well,
but
fair enough.
Yeah, that's maybe why I'm not a probability theorist.
Yeah. So you want your answer to be less, the actual answer to be less than 1 sigma, and part of the how confident you are is like, if you were really confident in 15,000, then you would say like, I think there's going to be 15,000 deaths was a sigma of like 500. So it'll probably be within a few hundred of 15,000. And I'm 95% sure it's going to be no more than 1,000 plus or minus 15,000.
What's weird is that if someone said, I think it'll be 0 plus or minus 5,000 or 10,000, they would have been right. But I feel like that's a stupid prediction, just given how bad the rest of the world was doing. I think this was early 2020. So...
I think it would mean that you're bad at predicting how the world is going to react to COVID or how deadly COVID is or something.
Yeah, they might.
But they would have been right in the case of Denmark. If they had said, I think it'll be 0 plus or minus 5,000.
Well, then they would be good at predicting how COVID does in Denmark. They have inside information about either how virulent COVID is or how well Denmark is going to handle it.
Fair enough. I just feel like at the time I'd have called that a bullshit guess, even if it turned out later to be right.
Well, hard to call bullshit on something that's right.
That's why I think you can't take a predictive system or you need a data set of here's my prediction calibration history, right?
Sure.
Here's how good I usually am
at predicting novel virus death rates or something,
or just whatever. Like Scott Alexander does his thing every year, right?
I think the domain that you're predicting makes a big difference.
It does, but I guess like if somebody came out and said, I don't know, I think there's a 100% chance Biden will win. Well, that's a stupid guess, but they were right. because he won. If that was the only prediction they made, they don't get a perfect track record. They don't even get points, right?
Well, I mean, but what if they made prediction that I think Biden is going to get 52% of the vote with a sigma of 0.01%?
That's a better prediction just because it's clearly more thought went into it, right?
No. If you think that a sigma of a sigma of 1/100%, you're basically saying I predict he's going to get exactly 52% of the vote.
That's better. That's better than saying I'm 100% confident he'll win, isn't it?
It's saying that I'm 100% confident he's going to win.
I think. Oh, I guess you're right. They're the same. They do amount to the same thing. One's more precisely overconfident, though.
Right.
It almost makes it worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I realize that I'm just assuming that the post author is from Denmark.
Yes.
Okay, because that was my response to, like, I think Steve was saying, like, it strikes me as a perfectly reasonable prediction. He just might have more information about how Denmark does with, like, virus outbreaks, with following, like, things like masking orders or...
What's the population of Denmark?
15,000.
It's 5.8 million. That'd be funny. So almost 6 million.
Okay.
Faster at typing than me.
See, well, actually, I cheated.
I
I asked you guys while I asked my phone at the same time.
Oh.
So 15,000. I'd have to do math, and that's going to take me a second, which is not fun audio. But I feel like that was a reasonable approximation for, given what we just passed 900,000 deaths in the U.S., right?
I don't know.
Something like that.
Okay.
Out of 360 million. So you guys do the math. But
he's guessing a death rate of 0.2%.
Well, that's actually spot on with basically the mortality rate, right?
I mean, apparently not, because
not in Denmark, but in other parts of the world.
Denmark
seems to have handled this really well.
He was guessing for Denmark, though, not for the world as a whole.
In the U.S., looks like 901K, so exactly just passing 900,000.
We got 300 million people here, right?
I think it's 350,
something like that,
give or take.
Ask. I'm sorry, I'm going to make a quick
What's the population of the United States?
This is the best episode.
Yeah, right.
332.
It's probably really fun for some people.
330.
330. Okay. You said 332. Are you lying to me?
Do you want the exact number? And you can
Yes, I want
give
the
us
exact number.
Here, there you go.
We have here a death rate of 0.2%. I was rounding before. It was 0.25 was Jan's estimate. On our actual number in the U.S. is 0.27. So if he was guessing for the U.S.,
he was fucking spot on.
But unfortunately, he was guessing for a nation that's on the other side of the world.
Unfortunately, far fewer Danes died.
That's true.
Well, okay, fortunately. But unfortunately for his prediction accuracy metric, which is far more important than how many people died.
All right, so here, I'll tell you what, I'll withdraw all of my objections about whether or not this was a bad prediction, because the probability theorist is telling me it was a bad prediction.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so you're right. You're right, John. Sorry.
So yeah, anyways, that's how to do a normal prediction, and that's how to tell if you were good or not. There's a more formal way to tell if you were good at predicting or not, and he has numbers to show you how to do that. Anyone who's decent at math, pretty decent at math, you should go look at that in the post that is linked, but it includes things like square roots, which I dislike square roots as it is, because then they give you imaginary numbers, and I hate those. But more to the point, it's much harder to translate that all into words to say on air rather than having something to look at. So I'm going to completely skip past it. But it'll show you a way to mathematically show how good you are at predicting things rather than just, I was within 2/3 of a sigma, or like, holy shit, I was more than 2 sigma away. You can get a better number on it.
What's always fun, once in a while, listening to the Less Wrong posts, it'll start with the guy saying, this post contains a number of illustrations and graphs that make it a lot easier to understand what the post is.
Okay, cool.
This is almost like the first episode we've had like that, where it's like, you kind of need to look at the accompanying material.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
But easy takeaway, less than 2/3 sigma. If your prediction was within less than 2/3 sigma, you did good. If it was more than 2 sigma away, you did absolutely awful. Advantages of this system are as such. Number 1, the weak 50-50. Sometimes you are actually 50-50 on something, such as Scott's prediction that Bitcoin had a 50-50 shot of going over 3,000 in 2019. That could be reformulated as Bitcoin mu 3000 sigma 1500, such that a price of 10,000 counts against the prediction. Now, a weak prediction still gives evidence of calibration. Because yeah, if Scott is predicting something like Bitcoin is going to go over 3,000, then he's probably thinking, 3,000 to 4,000, 3,000 to 5,000 maybe. But if it goes to like, 10,000, 100,000, then that would still, that would still count as a failure rather than, oh, well, I was right because it was over 3,000, so it counts as a win.
He thought Bitcoin was going to go over 3,000 in 2019.
Yes.
Well, 50-50.
Wasn't it over 3,000 a lot before that already? I'm looking at the graph right now because that number struck me as impossible.
Bitcoin is famously volatile.
But, like, in 2017, it was 6,000.
Yeah. Well, the question
13,000.
Is it going to plummet by at least half or not?
Oh, is it going to go over 3,000 in 2019? And it's like it started 2019 at 4,000. So yes.
Yeah, well, no, you're assuming Bitcoin only goes up. But at the time, it could have very well gone back down. People were saying, oh my God, 4,000 is an insane amount of money for one Bitcoin. It's going to tank back down to $400.
I think
so saying the Bitcoin is going to be over 3,000 was actually a bit of a risky prediction.
It said that it has a 50-50 shot of going over 3,000 in 2019.
Or being over 3,000.
Well, being or going are different.
I don't know. But did he make the prediction in 2018 then?
I'm just seeing what's in the post here. I'm reading verbatim. It just says Scott's prediction had a 50-50 shot of going over 3,000 in 2019.
Scott's
I don't mean to nitpick.
Bitcoin.
That said, this is one of those things where I get pissed. Like I should have bought, 10 Bitcoin in 2019, right?
Yeah.
Of course, in the last year it's tanked considerably, but
it's down to like 40,000 now.
Yeah, but still, it's way up from 3,000 that you could have gotten it for in 2019.
Okay, so at the beginning, in January 25th of 2019, he made the prediction that by the end of 2019, Bitcoin would be over 1,000, 90%, over 3,000, 50%, over 5,000, 20%.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you. Yeah, the summary made it confusing.
Yeah.
All right, carry on. Thanks for bearing with me.
No problem. Where was I?
That is actually a pretty good way of capturing confidence. I mean...
Yeah. It's not as good as the normal distribution, but it's something.
But it doesn't look like this.
It definitely...
Nobody can see what I have on my screen right now, but it's the worst thing I've ever looked at.
My eyes are bleeding.
But if you take all three of those together, you can tell that he thought that Bitcoin was going to be somewhere between 1 and 3,000, and he thought it was extremely unlikely it would be over 5,000. But he still got 2 out of 3 predictions correct, since Bitcoin went... I don't know. Where did it end 2019 at?
It's hard to tell on my little graph thing. It's 4,000, give or take 1,000, or 4,000-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. My little graph makes me slide my finger, and I only have it's at a 5-year scale, so hitting a particular day is hard.
Okay. Another advantage of normal distributions is overshooting and undershooting. If Biden had gotten 20% or 80% of the votes, both things would be strong evidence of my prediction being wrong, where the binary prediction can only say you were, wrong in one direction. You were either right or you were wrong.
Unidirectional wrongness.
Mm-hmm. Another advantage.
But that is a huge advantage, knowing which way you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I guessed he would win is the easy answer, or is the easy guess. And look, he won, but barely, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just reaffirming.
I thought he would barely win, but he blew it out and took every state except Texas. That's also technically correct by the binary, but actually a wrong prediction. If you're predicting he would barely win.
Yeah, no, this is a huge advantage. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Another advantage, high confidence predictions are easier to calibrate. In binary land, a 99% prediction is very hard to calibrate because you need to make hundreds of them to get enough data. Unless many turn out wrong, of course. A corresponding normal prediction would have a small sigma and thus give as much evidence of calibration as a 60% prediction. So, yeah, you can... If you're extremely confident in something, you can give it a very small sigma and thus demonstrate to the world that you were right in being extremely confident when you land right on that marker with your prediction. Also, right for the wrong reasons. All of these are 3 different predictions about the Biden winning. N50.6 with 0.5 sigma, N54 with 3 sigma, or N58 with 6 sigma, give Biden a 91% win chance, but for very different reasons, and will thus lead people to update differently after observing that the actual result was 52. Because, the 50.67 with a 0.5 is a very strong confidence prediction that Biden is just barely going to win, whereas the 58 with a 6% is, a weaker prediction, but it also predicts that he's going to do quite a bit better than he actually did. So you can be right for the wrong reasons, and this sort of normal prediction will show what your wrong reasons were likely to be, or will at least hint in that direction.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to the overshooting, undershooting.
Yeah. All right, that is basically everything I got on here. There was a little more at the end that said, "I'm going to give you more stuff about normal predictions soon. Expect more math," and I fled in terror.
I was so glad that we're not covering the advanced techniques, because that's where my brain just went.
Well, I appreciate your tutorial, and I can only imagine that for Jan writing this, like, you covered a lot of inferential distance, dumbing it down for people like me to be able to even have an attempt at following it. I think Enosh helped bridge that gap a little more, and that helped get me the rest of the way there. So Woo-hoo! I should try and make a prediction like this. I mean, why not, right?
Honestly, I think everyone should do this, and I think it would be great if this supplanted the binary predictions in the rationalist community. I really hope that next year's predictions that Scott releases will all be normal predictions, which I think will take a bit more time to make each prediction, but the extra data will be worth it. And also, he won't have to make 100, 200 predictions and only get a little bit of data each year. He could make like 20 predictions and get even more data.
That's true. He does have like the track record though of like, here's my calibration doing it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
If you're starting the track now, and I think that's another advantage of doing it this way, right?
He could maybe like continue doing both for a while and like only give normal distributions for like 20 questions.
That sounds like a good idea. That'd be fun. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I love it.
Like, I never bothered doing my own predictions because the whole percentages and then track it for years and stuff, it didn't seem that great of a method, especially because like how confident I might be in any one subject changes from year to year, and so I don't know how good of a metric that would be. But I think the normal distribution, due to the fact that it gives you so much more data so much faster, would be useful, and I'm thinking about maybe making some predictions next year.
Do it.
Or you could make them anytime too.
How dare you give me more work right now? Maybe I should. I was literally thinking that as he said it, and I was like, oh, I hope no one calls me out on this.
Your homework
yes.
for next 2 weeks is to make one of these.
I could do one. In fact, that'd be great if we all did one.
That'd be fun.
Challenge accepted.
All right.
We'll all do one.
We're all going to do one. All of our listeners must also do one or no longer be in the conspiracy.
I've got to go long. I like a long way back. I lost a bet to David Spearman on Discord about the percentage of young people that were going to vote in the 2020 election. Mm-hmm. The data came in for that like a year ago, and I forgot. I might have mentioned it on the air, but I just remembered like last week. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to like do anything about that. I think I'll owe you $10. Okay. So I'll get all that sorted.
How off were you?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, more than I thought I'd be, obviously.
Okay.
So he was right in the more pessimistic guess that I think I'd said that they would come out in like 10% higher numbers than previous elections or something. Mm-hmm. I think that was my guess, and it turned out not to be that. But I can't remember what the actual number was. I'll have to go look it up. All right. Yeah, I got distracted. Sorry.
Yeah. Just one final thing about the sigma thing. The 2/3 sigma I keep harping about because that's the line where you're supposed to be. I'm reasonably confident that 50-50 confident that it's definitely going to fall within 2/3 sigma is what he said, if I read it correctly.
That sounds right. Yeah. That was my understanding, I think. Yeah. I'd have to look back at the numbers.
Cool. So what time is it? Hey, that's not that long. See, we can totally cover two subjects in one episode.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I thought we were going to do the Z scoring and all.
Oh, yeah, no, that's...
Thank you for not making me
There's
pretend
logarithms.
I know what's going on here.
Oh, my God.
Every mathematician's rolling their eyes that we're too, like, scared and stupid to dig those.
Yeah.
And, like, but for me, I'm like, I vaguely remember logarithms from school, and I have no idea.
I mean, I know what a logarithm is, but I never used them in my real life and only barely in school, so I have no intuitive grasp of them.
Yeah, I don't remember any of that stuff. I should. Math's cool. I'll learn math again eventually, maybe.
No, I mean, you'll know it if it becomes important in your life ever. That's just basically the rule, and there's a lot of people who use logarithms, and so it is important to them, and they know it, and we are not those people.
For people like us, it'd be like being like really knowledgeable about like classic music or wine.
I'm still
hoping. It'd be like, look at this esoteric thing that has no value to my life that like I know a lot about. I must be super well off. If it was you or me.
If it was one of us, it would be like if we never listened to classical music but knew all that about it, or we never drank wine but knew all that about it. It's intentionally learning stuff about something you never use anyway.
That's fair. I guess the implicit assumption in my examples was that knowing stuff about classical music and wine is pointless no matter how much wine or music you listen to.
Yeah, I think if you listen to a lot of classical music, it's great to know that stuff, right?
I know so much about insects.
And
that
you
just likes it.
regularly kill insects.
Kill them. Well, I guess
I
I
don't
feed
know,
them
do
to
you?
things. Actually, I'm
that's right.
I'm cultivating bioactive terrariums right now, so I'm right now studying springtails and isopods.
I was really just hoping that you regularly kill insects like any good human does.
And actually, I really want to get a tailless whip scorpion, which I promise that I will hide from Steven.
Thank you. You tried to share a video, and I was like, oh, luckily I know that Signal does previews, and I covered the screen while I deleted the message.
Even if you're not scared of insects and think they're adorable like me, this thing looks fucking scary.
This isn't an insect. This is a science fiction monster.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say correctly that it's a arachnid, but
Oh!
No, it's a horror show.
Yeah. All right. Should we do our second main subject?
Yes.
Does somebody else want to talk more than me on this one?
This one's succinctly summarized in the title.
Change is bad.
By Zvi in 2017.
Yeah, this is the same Zvi we all know for his awesome COVID work that
Coverage,
he's been doing the last 2 years. Yeah.
I like that at the top. He was like, I'm making this now, and I want to be able to reference it going forward. So, like, I didn't check, and I wouldn't know how to check, but I'm sure that he went back a lot and be like, remember how I said change sucks? Like, every time like he's talking about how things are bad.
I mean, the post is almost as succinct as the title. Like, I tried to pull out just the core parts, and I still pulled out like almost half the post because the post is very short and gets right to the point. So
Yeah,
it's a
short
good
and sweet.
post.
good
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so almost all changes are bad. What people actually want is one of those rare, carefully chosen, good, friendly changes. They do exist within change space.
I'm reminded of the saying that not every change is an improvement. However, every improvement is a change.
Yeah.
Which is technically correct, but I think Zvi is pushing back on this, that like changes have more costs than you think. Just because something is an improvement doesn't necessarily mean it is net good.
Because it's a change.
Yes. That change itself is bad, and so we should take in the cost of the fact that we're changing something. Let's go ahead and read the first little part here.
Yeah, the more optimized things currently are, the less likely any given change is to be good. The more effort people have put into optimizing other things, based on the thing that you're looking to change, the less likely any given change is to be good. You could break a lot of things. When you break those things, you cause harm. Even a net improvement can make a person or group feel worse off.
Yes.
The one thing that I'll nitpick on this, because that's the only contribution I can have is nitpicking, is he's like, yeah, the change space is huge, right? And it's like, yeah, but people don't make changes by just like grabbing part of something and hitting it, right?
Have you ever seen an app?
But even that, like, they're not going in genetic mutation style and like literally just like slamming a string of characters into the code base somewhere and seeing what happens. That's like, in that case, that is like, yes, that is a change, and most changes are bad in that sense. But like, no, this is apps are at least a lot more like natural selection.
I kind of disagree. Can I give my example? Like, I think a lot of changes in apps are just done because, as Paul Graham says, if your programmers aren't doing interesting things, they're going to leave for a project where they can do interesting things. But a lot of software is already working and doing what it's supposed to do. So your programmers are going to leave, and you're going to flounder if you don't have them making changes or something. But the changes don't need to be.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah, but I want to give my archetypical. Go ahead.
I was going to say most apps now are like worse than they used to be, but I'm just saying the changes aren't drawn randomly from change space.
Yes,
right.
Yes, yeah.
They are directional.
They make
some
sense, maybe.
Their intent. There's intent behind them, and there's like design. That said, they come off, things go bad, but I want to hear your archetypal example.
My archetypal, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Example of change being bad is my alarm app on my phone, which just comes with the Android phones.
I have that one.
I'm really curious to see how they fucked up an alarm app.
They didn't fuck it up. They changed it. It looked one way before, and then one day I woke up and it looked slightly different. And the main thing that they changed was how it looks, so I had to adjust what I did when I set my alarm. And also importantly, the AM and PM are now black and white, and it's not clear which one is the selected one. It's like
no, the selected one is the one that's like usually like different from the background color.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know. I'll take your word for it.
Like
I always have to tap it now to make sure it's on the right one, because the entire interface is black and white. Some of the numbers are black, some of the things are white, and AM, PM, like, one of them has white background with black letters. The other one has black background with white letters.
That is horrible.
Yeah. Like, AM is white letters, white background with black letters. PM is black background with white letters. And then when I click on one of them, it might swap. And when I click on it, that's when I realize that's the one that was selected, and either I didn't have to click on it, or I did have to click on it. But I can't tell from looking at it which one is the selected one.
No, the way you described it makes it sound like whatever one is the white text, it sounds like that's the selected one.
Okay.
Right?
I don't know. I can memorize it.
That sounds terrible.
But that's the thing. Maybe I am someone who just got this phone, and I have memorized, the white background is the selected one, easy peasy, I will always click that. Then 6 months from now, they change it again to now it's whichever one has the border around it is the selected one or whatever. And okay, I guess I can just rememorize that, but I am doing more mental effort now for no reason. I now have to forget my old memorization, new memorization, and sure, that's not a lot of effort, but it's more effort. You changed something, you imposed a cost on me, there was literally no net benefit.
And I just want to set the alarm. Yeah. What were you going to say, Jace?
Have you tried using it in night mode?
It is night mode, yes.
Oh, so now I think I have like a screen reader for nighttime that kind of fixed it because it changed the coloration. I couldn't remember if it was anyway.
Yeah.
The other thing was just but I agree with you because you have to reteach yourself how to use an app that you even if there's a very slight improvement in a website or an app, and a lot of the time there's cosmetic things. You move everything around.
Yeah.
And
now you have to re-memorize where everything is.
Yeah.
I despise the Microsoft ribbon that they have on their Word and Excel and stuff.
Oh my god.
Because first of all, the menus, at least you had a word for each menu and then a drop-down list, and it was the same font. You could read down the list what you needed, right? That's assuming
now it's a bunch of icons you can't even see because they're so crammed in there.
That's assuming you've never used the program before. You could just scroll through every menu and read down the list. Now there's all these ribbons. The icons are various shapes and sizes. Literally, some of them are rectangles,
and you don't even know what the hell.
Squares. They're
you have
different
to
sizes.
Hover over it. Because you're okay, there's a picture of a clipboard with a check mark on it. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah, it is. Oh my god, they screwed the pooch when they made this change. And fortunately, I had already been using it back when it was intuitive, and when you went to the drop-down menu, there was the hotkey next to each one. So I very quickly memorized all the hotkeys that I needed to use. And fortunately, they grandfathered in the old hotkeys would continue to work with the ribbon, and I could just use those for the things I needed to use. But then, some things, they introduced a new function or two that I actually did find useful. And now I was what the fuck is the hotkey for this? I got to go to goddamn Google. Anytime I want to learn a new app, I can't use the app just and learn it intuitively. I have to Google, how do I do this thing? Which is, Google's always there, so that's great, but I don't think that should be the way things work.
Or you can
Anyways,
just use
I'm being a man that yells at the clouds right now.
No, it's. I think it's valuable, and it's a good example. I think everyone can think of apps that just, why'd you do this? This makes it worse.
Yeah. But even if it doesn't make it worse, just any change at all is bad because you have to relearn things. If there is enough of a net improvement to make it worth relearning, that can outweigh the bad, but there is still that bad.
There's cost.
There's still a cost.
Yeah.
I would want to say it's a net improvement. What they did for setting time, and a lot of this is going to be visual, but if I want to update the time of the event that I have in my calendar here, they got rid of this little wheel for a while. On iPhone, you set hey, I want to do a time, and this is the hours, this is the minutes, this is AM, PM. Super intuitive.
Yeah.
They got rid of that for a while, for one update, and everyone hated it because it made it really confusing. Wait, what the fuck time is this set for? I got to go in here and type. That's so dumb. Anyway, so they fixed that on something. Maybe it was the alarm. Now that I think about it. In any case, you can make things better, right? Another funny thing is all the Google apps look all the same now. Mail, Chrome, and whatever.
Oh my god.
The logos are really, really close.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
And that was a marketing thing. I hear all the Google engineers screamed their heads off when it happened, and the marketers are well, fuck you, we got the power. We want everything to look the same because we don't care about our users. We just want brand recognition. You
get a glance at the thing, you're oh, that's a Google thing, right? So it's got brand recognition, but it's is that the Google Play app or is that the Google Maps app?
Yeah.
And then you got to click
Gmail?
it to find out.
Is that fucking
madness.
Yeah.
The faster and bigger.
Basically, this whole post is just fuel for the old man yells at clouds fire.
But I want to say specifically that we are only touching the surface level problem here, where it's the change itself that has costs that annoys us. He's pointing at the bigger thing that if something has been around for a long time, people have created a lot of things around that thing, optimized it. I think school was a pretty good example that was brought up. Government school sucks. It's terrible. I think it should be abolished. I think it may be worse than the FDA. I'm not sure about that. But it's been around for...
School kills less people than the FDA.
That's true.
We're just going to go that way.
But does it damage people psychologically enough to make it out? I don't know. Anyways, point being that it's been around for like a century, and people have optimized their lives around school and the expectations that school is there in a lot of ways. And
largely parents use it as free daycare.
yes, and if you make major changes to it right now, even though almost any change would be an improvement, it's going to massively disrupt things because people have optimized a lot of their lives and where they live, like the hundreds of thousands of dollars they poured into a home based purely on its school district, and then you change that on them is a massive life disruption. And there's tons of things like that. Anything that the government gets involved in, has a regulation about, and that sticks around for more than a decade is like that, where any change is going to hurt a lot of people who have optimized their lives based on what the rule was.
Even a net improvement can make a person or group feel worse off.
Yeah.
Where they did kind of break school with
COVID.
Yeah.
Well, even a net
lockdown.
Even a net improvement could actually make you worse off. Like, I learned in high school, and I had to ask somebody else because I didn't believe the person who told me, even though I think it was a teacher, that the money that goes into the school from the government is based on the surrounding income of the average income surrounding the school.
Yeah.
And that struck me as so obviously insane that I thought the person was bullshitting me. And then I confirmed it. So, like, you could say, hey, this thing that's obviously fucking stupid, we're going to stop doing that. Every school gets the same. It's based on size.
And
right?
then people freak the fuck out because they moved there for a reason.
Exactly. So, like, that will improve the quality of a lot of schools and decrease the quality of a lot of other schools. And you're right. So, like, home value can be based on, like, look, it's within walking distance of this nice school. And because your house cost $1 million fucking dollars because you're an idiot, it's a great school, right? So those people would be hosed, right?
Yeah.
But everyone who's not in $1 million house gets a better education.
Yeah. And I mean, you're not necessarily an idiot if you're specifically buying the school.
No, I know.
Don't buy in that area if you don't have kids.
I get annoyed at house prices and how schools get funded, apparently.
Yeah. But you were sorry, Jace, you were saying?
It's just continuing. The faster and bigger you make changes, the more other things you're likely to break, and the more critically that you will break them. At minimum, even when your change is strictly for the better, those things then must change to adapt. In many cases, they're broken entirely, beyond repair, and this goes on to break other things.
Yes. And that it's usually a lot harder to build or repair something than it is to break that thing. So, I don't know what else to say about that.
Steven had the perfect example with your sink earlier.
Just jumpstart my brain.
It was a lot easier to break your sink than to repair it?
I mean, well, it's always easier to break stuff than it is to fix it, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, this doesn't tie in exactly perfectly. Like, so I was leaking a couple months ago, or a month or something, and there's a point when you're taking something apart, or at least when I am, like to try and fix it, where you're like, okay, fuck fixing this. I just want to take it all the way apart, and I'll never be able to put it back together again, but I want to see what's broken. Yeah, I don't know if this fits in there really neatly. What it did do is make me good at putting in the next sink thing, or the next faucet that we installed, so.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that fits in, but
He does make 2 more points here. Modern life is highly optimized. Often, it is optimized for the wrong things. Nevertheless, it is highly, highly optimized. And also, older people have had more time to optimize and have less time to optimize again. So it makes sense that they hate change even more than others. They should. Which is why you see them yelling at clouds a lot. Much like Steven and me just were. But yeah, both good points, I think. It makes me feel some more sympathy to the olds. And yeah, modern life is incredibly interconnected.
yeah.
Plucking on those things, I mean, it can be disruptive, and it can be a net good, but always remember that the change is going to have a cost, and that is bad.
A thing that I think is a really good example is hospital software.
Yeah.
In particular, what's...
Electronic health records.
Yeah, there's a specific program that for some reason just completely escaped my mind, but first of all, you've got, people that have spent 8 or more years in education learning how to use this thing. And then, however many years they've been on the job. And even if they were to replace it with better software, which I spent a really long time wishing they did, everyone hates the software, but also you would just ruin an entire hospital system if you tried to just entirely replace that software.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, and we'll go through more of the post, but that does strike me as a problem that's actually desperately in need of fixing. Kind of, not no matter the cost, because you're right. If we were just to roll out the change Monday morning everyone goes in and none of their software that they were used to works because everyone's using a fresh new app that's actually intuitive and whatever, people would die, right?
Yeah.
So it can't be done that way, but it does need to be done just for the sake of like being able to connect it to a secure, to connect the information to a secure remote offsite area. So like if I say change cities and want to get my health records from my old doctor, I don't have to call them and have them fax the paperwork that they got from 1998, right? Like, no, just how about they can look it up, right? The current system's not set up to accommodate that. Do you remember like using like Word in like the early 2000s, like Microsoft Word, where like the top, say, third to half of the screen was just buttons of how to format the document?
That was what we were complaining about earlier.
Well, you're talking about Excel, which is like...
No, I think you were just saying Microsoft Suite, right?
Oh, the whole Microsoft Suite.
Yeah, fair enough. But like it's like that. But it's like just like with all the buttons on that, you don't use any of the buttons. You just want to type. All I want to do is just say hello. And no, you've got to click through 36 buttons first.
I still use TextEdit as my primary text editor.
Smart.
That's a good one.
That reason.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of the COBOL Cowboys?
No.
So COBOL is an old programming language, and it's used in some, I think it's some mainframes in really old systems, some government systems. I don't remember exactly what it is used for, but there are some systems that still use it, and the cost of changing away from that system to a new one would be a massive overhaul of an entire infrastructure. Like, it would be tens of millions of dollars at least.
I think a lot of banks use COBOL.
Banks too?
Yeah. Because they were some of the first people to start storing data digitally, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
They used what was available.
I mean, a minimum of tens of millions of dollars, probably quite a bit more. But fewer and fewer programmers learn COBOL because it's only used for those old legacy systems.
It's like learning Latin.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Except there's still like 4 or 5 dragons in the world that speak only Latin, and you need somebody to speak with them. So there's a few ancient senior programmers still working that know COBOL.
They should call them dragons, although I guess they call them cowboys.
Yeah, they call themselves the COBOL Cowboys. And they make a lot of money because there's only like 7, 8 of them left that are alive and programming COBOL. But someday they're going to die, and then all our bank money will be worth $0.
It's more than 7 or 8, but what is fun is like, yeah, if you want to get into a niche job maintaining gross old crap, like that is a way to do it, right? Hey, no one wants to learn this. I'll do it. And
charge it.
doesn't
out the butt.
doesn't Carrie from the meetups, doesn't he program in Haskell?
Yeah,
or
I was just
something?
gonna say.
Yeah.
That Haskell's similar.
Which, like, yeah, it's job security, and it's probably salary security too, right?
Yeah.
Like, anyone can go learn JavaScript, but no, I'm a Haskell programmer, which, yes, means that there are very few jobs for me, but they all pay really well.
Right?
There's
There's
no,
very little competition for those jobs.
Right.
There's no Haskell boot camps.
Yeah. He says that, yes, we need change. The only constant is change. Other things are changing and breaking your things, forcing them too to change, and all that. We're all slowly dying of old age, and forces move to wipe out all value in the universe. Plus, we're getting pretty tired of the same old restaurants and albums and TV shows. So yeah, change is inevitable. We need change. He's saying, but when you do change, don't fall for something must be done. This is something, therefore we must do it. Also, we don't want to fall for something better could be done, so until we figure it out, no one change anything. He says try to explore and experiment so that we have a better idea of what we are breaking before we implement things on too large a scale. Then we change things anyway because we have to, but with our eyes open. And that's... there were a few more lines after that, but I wanted to end it right there because that was, I thought, a darn good ending. Yeah, change is bad. Don't forget that change is bad, but got to change anyway. So just don't forget that the change is bad part is there, offsetting any increases and maybe offsetting them by a lot.
I got rabbit holed a little bit reading the Wikipedia page on Goddard's Law when he linked to optimizing for the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk about how right now the relative baseline is really, really, really good?
No, I did not.
Because that's important to emphasize, right? Like,
Sure.
we're highly optimized,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's a lot of, like, well, little tweak here could fuck things up, whereas, like, if we went back 2,000 years, basically anything would be an improvement, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could change whatever your pillow's made out of, and it's going to be better because it's on a rock, right? So...
I was about to say, you could make it a rock, because
Actually,
I think even 2,000 years ago, the pillows weren't rocks.
there's
50,000 years ago. Fine.
In that case, the pillow was the dead baby of your enemy. That's why you had to keep conquering other tribes, so you would have pillows. They tend to rot after a while.
Yeah. What were you saying, Jay? Sorry.
I I just wanted to be one of those actually guys.
Oh, okay.
Where there's some evidence, and I'm really interested in this, that getting like a Japanese style futon, which barely has a pillow, like basically sleeping on the floor is better for your body because, like, for the same reason that I've started trying to wear, like, just be barefoot most of the time or wear like barefoot shoes. Where I also believe that like I keep wanting to say that there's good evidence, or then I want to say there's some evidence, but I think there's just a lot of, people with opinions. But like shoes that have built-in arches and ankle support and cushion, like, ruins your feet's ability to be feet. And then you need more cushion and more arch support over time.
I'm always torn on that because I've like the intuitive argument is like, well, our ancestors survived for a long time with like basically no footwear, and they did well enough, right?
There's living people that do.
Yeah, that too. But like, I'm torn because like, am I hurting my feet by constantly cushioning them in nice shoes, or am I helping them in the same way that like I'm helping my eyes by wearing glasses, right? Like, my feet work. They worked well enough for my ancestors not to die, but now they're better because now they've got shoes on them, right? Or is it like,
I think we've got enough generations that have worn feet or shoes their entire lives to figure they're not so bad that it cripples you.
It doesn't cripple you, but I wonder, like, it's a bad thing to have heard. And I went the opposite way and bought an expensive purple mattress, which actually I really enjoy. And I did try those Japanese futons when I was in Japan, and hated them.
Yeah, they're probably really uncomfortable if you're not used to it. And with wearing barefoot shoes, you also have to condition your feet because they do hurt a lot worse than regular shoes at first. But it's because my feet don't have the musculatures like that they need to support themselves yet.
Yeah,
so,
I don't want to.
That's a project I'm tinkering with. Maybe I can,
Awesome.
if I find more evidence one way or the other, or I can sort of report my results.
Yeah, report back if your feet still hurt when you try and stand. Like, because I bought a standing desk for work, or one that goes from sitting to standing, and I was messaging a coworker because he had one, and I was like, how the hell are you doing this? I've been here for 15 minutes and my feet hurt. And he's like, oh, I'm wearing shoes.
Oh.
And I'm like, well,
you also usually have like a standing pad, pretty thick thing that
I bought
gives you cushion to
I
your
bought a
feet.
thick ass standing pad first because I didn't want to wear shoes inside because I didn't have any, like, it's carpeted, it's upstairs and all that stuff.
Okay, so this is pad plus shoes is what he's saying.
I don't know what he had, but I bought the pad. It wasn't enough, so I ended up just I had some old shoes that were like perfectly smooth on the bottom because they're like 5 years old, and just cleaned them with a rag.
Did it
and
work?
Now they're my indoor shoes. Yeah, now I can stand at work if I want.
Oh, cool.
Which I rarely do.
So
now
you
the
do
pad's
need the support
useless
because your musculature is that weak.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
But I wonder if maybe standing just sucks.
Yeah.
Like, maybe anybody would. That's why I was curious about, Jason, a year, time how long you can comfortably stand it now, and then come back to us in a year and be like, hey, look, it tripled. Or it's like, oh, it's within a minute of the same.
I've always had a lot of problems standing still. Like, if I ever was volunteering for something at a con, I would ask for something where I walk around at least if I'm, menial labor, because just standing still tended to hurt my back, my upper back a lot. And I don't know why.
You've got to pivot, or, raise one leg and,
That's why I think a tread desk was a good idea, but it sounded like you didn't like yours.
I liked it a lot. It's just that after about 20 minutes of walking on the tread desk, my knees started to ache a little bit because I am of an age.
Or maybe just because you're not conditioned for it.
Or maybe because I'm not conditioned to it, yeah. Maybe if I would have just kept at it for long enough, eventually I could have been like walking for an hour and my knees would be like, yeah, we're well lubricated and running along just fine, sir.
I'm really glad I had an opportunity to try one of those at an office before I bought one, because it turns out that I can't read on a monitor and walk comfortably.
That was what I was worried about when I thought of it.
You move.
You're going up and down a lot.
Yeah. And your distance to and from the monitor changes a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
I'm like, I'm just, zooming up and down and, in and out. And I'm like, I can't sit and read like this. And then, never mind typing, where I'm moving away from my keyboard a lot.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the reading, but the typing, that's quite a bit more difficult.
When I've been running, I tried reading or even like watching a show on my phone. I just listen to podcasts or music now because it was the same thing. I was like, I wonder how this would work with the tread desk. I mean, I guess you're not actually running, but
sitting for long periods is so bad for your body.
It is.
I want to know, like, how a scientist would custom design a skeleton and musculature to be optimized for sitting, because that would, I guess I don't want that body because I would never get laid. But I'm curious what it would look like.
You'd only have like limited positions.
Yeah.
Maybe just like an exosuit.
I think just the most important thing would be get up and move every couple hours. It's just hard when you get in the flow,
Did anyone ever watch Silicon Valley?
No.
I saw a few episodes, and then it was because I was actually working at a startup, and my coworkers were watching it. They're like, "This is our life," and I was like, I don't know. They were sharing jokes about it all the time, so I was just like, "I'll check it out, fine." And then I couldn't do it. I was like, "It is our life, and it's terrible."
Luckily, it's comically.
This is too real.
Luckily, it's comically over the top after a little while, but it might have been the last season or the second to last season. And I only know the guy's name because now he's on SNL. Aristotle Atari. He had
That's
one
his
of
real name?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a cool
Bold
name.
parents.
Right. Kumail Nanjiani was like his manager or whatever on the show, and they're all software people. And Aristotle's character is just like unbearably annoying. Like he's like just the intense nerd, but he's got like this kind of, you mentioned exoskeleton, and it's like a belt thing where when you lean back, like the little leg parts that are constantly dragging behind your legs fall back, and you can kind of just sit anywhere.
Oh.
And so he makes a big show of kind of like whenever he goes
I've
anywhere,
seen those.
and he sits, and it just, you see Kumail just being super pissed at him all the time because he thinks it's unbearable.
I've seen
Anyway.
something like that in real life.
Yeah, ability to sit wherever you want sounds fun.
It sounds great, but it looks ridiculous.
It looks ridiculous, and I honestly can't imagine it'd be that comfortable. Maybe it is, but I don't know. All right, that's about all I got. This was a fun post. The takeaway is be mindful that what you're changing will have impacts. Some of them negative, but that doesn't necessarily mean. Again, I just want to emphasize that it's not worth the effort, right? At some point we'll have to redo hospital software, right? Just even to make it a more secure platform, so they can't keep getting what do you call those, ransomwares, right? That's like the easiest way to make money if you're an asshole, right? And you're and you work with tech savvy Russians, but just ransomware some hospitals, and I don't know. I mean, it's worth paying the cost at some point, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people want trade-offs to be one-sided, right? Like, oh no, it has to be all good. I'm going to pretend there are no drawbacks. It's like, well, why? There can be drawbacks, but it's net positive, right?
I wonder how much it'd cost a hospital just to do nightly backups.
Well, they do. I think
do.
they do them nightly, but you lose the entire day's worth of stuff, and
I think
and
it's worth it to not incentivize terrorists.
It depends on
Or
nightly
digital terrorists.
It depends on the place, but and it depends on where they store them. Like, are they storing them in a physical drive at the hospital?
I would hope it's physically removed from the actual servers. Yeah.
Well, like, I guess, I mean, if you left it in the same building, then it's like prone to like any sort of accident, right?
Yeah, but the accident we're optimizing against isn't a fire. Hospitals don't burn down, really, unless you have a Joker in your city. They get ransomwared.
It's epic. Sorry. I just had to look it up because you continue to talk about it, and it's driving me nuts.
What's Epic?
The electronic health record software.
Ah, okay.
That
I just know that
is not very epic, but it's the one that everyone uses.
I'll have to ask my wife which one she uses, but I know that hers does nightly backups, and of course it interrupts the flow of work, and like after that, then once it's done interrupting you, then anything that you've finished working on isn't saved till the next day. It's like, that's fine, it's better than nothing, but I'm not sure where that stuff is stored or how securely, right? Because
A lot is still done on paper too.
which is insane. Yeah, physical binders are a big way to handle hospital patient information.
I could show you a photo of the storage for some old studies. Like, we had a storage closet that was just completely full of binders. Like the joke when you open a closet that's like floor to ceiling packed with something. And this was literally like, for the store, they're like, yeah, but here's our, our old studies. And it was just like, if that fell on me, I would die. I'm not even joking.
I remember on Scott Alexander's post about his IRB nightmare, like they required him to have 2 physical binders somewhere locked in a drawer.
Yep.
Ridiculous shit.
I worked in that industry. I was gonna say I was a research coordinator, but technically I was a data something or other. I don't know. I was the person that ran around the hospital trying to find the data that was like scribbled on a napkin, and then put it in all the places it needs to go.
Well, shall we thank our patron?
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Well, Zachary Curtis, thank you for supporting our podcast. There's a lot of change that is bad, but the kind of change that isn't bad is when you support our podcast. That's not a change. Damn it. What am I?
It would be to somebody who's not currently supporting.
Yeah, so that would be a good change.
Yeah.
But we're thinking Zachary, not someone who isn't supporting us.
That's
How
right.
do I tie this in?
You made a change that was a change at some point. We appreciated it when you went from not supporting to supporting.
Damn,
Man,
nice. Thank you, Stephen.
I was going to say that was tortured, but as long as... All right, if you liked it.
Yeah, it worked. It was good.
Anyway, you rock. Thanks, Zach.
Yeah.
Or Zachary.
Zachary Kurtz. Did I say Curtis? I meant Zachary Kurtz.
I think you said...
Okay. Either way, that's awesome. You rock. Thank you. We all really appreciate it, and it keeps us going.
Woo. Thanks, friend.
Cool. All right, and I guess with that, we will wrap up, and we'll see everybody back again in 2 weeks.
Sounds fun. I never know how to sign.